Emerging tech in the back room, signals on the rise, AI in the checkout, spark in your eyes. Agents making choices while the buyers sleep. Every twist in the market runs deep. Morning in the feed, ideas in the cup. Old rules shaking, new ways showing up. Coffee and commerce, Caleb and Kayla, keep it moving. Coffee and commerce, from first sip to future we're brewing. What sells, what shifts, what stays, what lands, we trace the change with steady hands. One more pour, one more take, the future's here, wide awake. Coffee and commerce, Caleb and Kayla, keep it moving. Coffee and commerce, from first sip to future we're brewing.
Well, welcome back to Coffee and Commerce. Of course, you've got Caleb Bryant here and Kayla Schwartz. Kayla, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Caleb?
I'm doing well. What are you sipping on this morning? It is Friday morning, and so I know that you're still drinking coffee.
I am having a Starbucks cold brew.
Yeah. That's my
How about
go-to
you?
for travel.
Yeah?
I love a good cold brew from Starbucks for travel. I know. Don't hate me because of all my regenerative reprocessing, different wash talk. But for travel, you can guarantee get yourself some caffeine and it tastes pretty good as a Starbucks cold brew.
Yeah, it's got a pretty nice, smooth, but bold taste. I appreciate it.
Smooth and bold. I like it. I am drinking something different. It is called Alma coffee. So I've had this before a few different times, but it's small batch coffee. This one is from San Sebastian. I like most of my coffee as a light roast. So this is considered a bright roast.
Okay.
And tasting notes are lemongrass, lime, and honey, sourced from Honduras. So
Wow, it's
pretty
fancy.
good.
Where do you
Kind of-
get all these cool coffees, Caleb?
Yeah, my credit card would ask me the same thing. They get sent, like recommendations get sent to me, and I've just found a few different types of small batch coffee roasters that I end up liking, and we'll
Okay.
sort of narrow things down. So yeah, I like Alma coffee. It's really good. I've had a few different types of theirs, but yeah, very tasty.
Very cool. I like it. And I like your little cup.
Yeah, right. It's my Salesforce Blue Yeti Cortado mug. Very, very famous.
Sadly, my new glass iced coffee cup, it broke. It didn't last very
Of
long.
course it did. Yeah,
I dropped
of course it did.
Glass
Well,
cups,
I
they're
mean-
great in theory, right?
Yeah, great in theory, and you also have kids, so there are little distractions all around. Anyway, we were both in New York this week.
Yeah.
We were there for a couple of reasons, but you were there because you were speaking at CommerceNext.
Yes.
How was that?
It went great. I talked about our latest research that we are working on for the State of Commerce report. And it was all about evolution of agentic commerce in the commerce organization and how retail executives are navigating these changes. Not only that, but what's the maturity like? I feel like there's a lot of hype in the market, and
Wait a minute.
what's
You're talking about AI and there's a lot of hype?
right?
I've never heard this before.
Shocker. So it was a good, reality check on what actually is the progress within the business on agentic innovation in the commerce space. And so I interviewed Pooja Chandra Ramani from Coach and Dan Bennett from furniture.com, and they were awesome. So it was a good 30-minute discussion on, all of the cool things that they're doing in their businesses and how they're measuring success. And it was great.
And I heard that it was like standing room only for this session. So
I don't know about that,
they
but we
were,
had
they
a
were there
great-
for some reason.
Could have been me, could have been breakfast. I don't know.
I mean,
No, but it was great.
the breakfasts at these conferences are not that great. So I'm gonna go on maybe not the food and maybe it was the content.
I do have to say though, I was shocked. CommerceNext put on an amazing spread for food.
Did
and
they?
even
Okay. All right.
yeah, it was a really good meal. And not only that, but speaking of coffee, they had throughout the day these not even mini cans of Illy cold brew coffee, unsweetened,
Okay. Yeah.
all throughout the day. And I was like, this is great. I don't have to go to Starbucks and get my mid-afternoon conference coffee. And
That's
they had
awesome.
kombucha and so I was pleasantly surprised. It was not like standard conference food. So they did a great job.
Well, and you and I found out that they also have electrolyte suckers. I
Yeah.
mean, who knew that those were a thing?
Yeah. My kids did not enjoy
No.
them as much as I thought they would. No. There's like pieces of salt.
No. Tried and failed on the electrolyte sucker.
Very cool concept though.
Yeah, for sure. You got to try it at least.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of the content, of course, as you mentioned at CommerceNext, was about agentic AI and how brands are using it. You guys certainly had a great take in your session, and a number of brands, said pretty similar things. I think overall, I mean, there were, 2,500 retail leaders there, over 60 different sessions. And I think the just the core theme overall from CommerceNext was really how to use AI in productive ways and how to operationalize it in 2026. So I think probably your content was on the right track. And I think everybody is really leaning into learning and more about not just using it, but how do I get more productive in either building my agents with a specific purpose or using AI in the context of either my operations or my experience.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think every session had some AI component to it. So, I mean, I think that's par for the course now for any corporate conference these days. But what I think CommerceNext did great was really focusing on how to use AI to shape the customer experience, drive loyalty, and also talk a bit about like the omni-channel part of retail, which is still really like so important, more important than, we've ever seen.
100%.
And so, how do you like using AI in store and how to, improve store associate experiences and all of that. And so, yeah, there's just really great focus, I think, on the customer journey and what it means to drive loyalty and retention in this brave new world.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think, Wharton faculty co-director Kartik Hosanagar, hopefully I got that right, spoke quite a bit about using AI and using shopping agents and what that means to the overall customer journey, which, especially at Agent Force Commerce, we're very focused on using shopper agent and using product discovery to enhance the customer journey. So in that context, I think, in general, we would agree. I think also a lot of folks are certainly spinning up their own agents for various purposes, whether it's, answer engine optimization or optimizing their customer experience and trying to figure out how to do more with these advancements in technology, but in like measurable, meaningful ways where they're not necessarily breaking their experiences, but also willing to, to develop tests for how they can use them, and then once they find something that is highly useful, then willing to scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, awesome. So you mentioned physical retail. We talk a lot about the digital experience and optimizing the digital experience, but from your perspective and what you heard at CommerceNext, how do you think the physical retail experience can use AI, whether generative or agentic? How are retailers using it today already in their experiences based on what you've seen? And, and if you have some data points on it, fantastic. But what's the hot take on physical retail as we drink our hot coffee? Well, you got cold coffee. I'm drinking my hot coffee.
Are you more of a hot coffee or a cold coffee?
I'll do it all. I'm an equal opportunist.
I think where we see the most in-store usage of AI for retailers right now is supplementing the store associate experience, whether that's providing them with ability to get better recommendations for customers, training, internal resources, whatever. I think that is where we're seeing the most in-store use of agentic tools. We see on the consumer side that over half of shoppers say that they're using AI in store. So they're chatting with, ChatGPT or Gemini or whoever while they're navigating the store aisles. They're taking pictures of products. They're asking for recommendations. They're comparing pricing. So there's a ton of usage in store by consumers. And I'm curious, Caleb, have you ever used a chat agent while you're in the store?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's an incredible tool. So, I think the question is for retailers is how do you engage that AI shopper when they're on a third party tool? How do you get them to, if you have your own branded agent, which we're anticipating that brands will see an incredible surge over the next 6 months of brands launching their own branded agents. How do you get them to use your agent in the store versus a third party? And how do you make that experience like really stand out and become the go-to? And so that's what we're hearing a lot right now.
I mean, I think you nailed it. And I think not only are shopper agents an opportunity for consumers to be able to use them on the web, they're also an opportunity to use them in the store. Certainly, whether it is both aligned on web and app for loyal customers,
Yeah.
and then either geolocated or in-app push notifications to be able to use shopper agents just to train the behavior of consumers. And I think there's a whole bunch of goodness in sort of multi-channel personalization as a result of that. Like, hey, you're looking at this here, it looks like you're in this store in New York, because that's where we were.
Yeah.
And, they have it in this size. You said that you're a medium. They have it in these colors. Based on what you said, it looks like you've got a couple of trips coming up. And, this navy color is a great color that will go with anything, blah, blah, blah. Right? Like,
Yep.
You can get into all of that in store, in app, and on web. But then in addition to that, I think to your point, like, how do I also empower the retailer and the in-store associate with similar capability, or quite frankly, the same capability, right? But just on a bit more visibility about the customer, especially if they're interacting with the customer, they can look them up.
Yeah.
And then have an in-store agent that would allow for them to be able to make, more nuanced recommendations. So of course there's, gated access for all things. And I think that's important. But at that same time, having a retail associate agent in addition to a shopper agent, and with some level of overlap between the two, I think also can become incredibly powerful, especially for brands that are looking to, to connect online and in-store experiences. But what do you think?
Yeah. Well, what it signals, what kind of just sparked something in my head when you were talking, Caleb, and this is a conversation we had with retailers, like, I want to say like 8 years ago, right? Like, to app or not to app, the mobile app question.
Yeah.
At the time, not every brand or retailer needed a mobile app.
Mm-hmm.
But now with shopper agents and more and more loyalty programs and like a very concerted effort to
100%.
build loyalty, like, what are your thoughts on like there being a market now for mobile apps?
I think there's more of a market now for mobile interactions, whether it is an app or an even more optimized agentic experience for brands.
Yeah.
But the goal is to get them into personalization, into access to loyalty. So if, for example, like I'm shopping at Home Depot, which, we just built a house and we've got a bunch of construction workers here, and that's all fun. And in addition to that, of course, that means you've got an entirely new honey-do list of things that you need to go accomplish. And as a result, you have to go to Home Depot. So I think there's a huge opportunity to be able to take advantage of loyalty, consistency of shopping, access to historical data, access to, to in-store interactions, and then be able to either build a project and then associate that to, your profile with your preferred retailer. I think there's a lot of ways that you can build loyalty into the agentic shopping experience. I also think, like I said, we bought some furniture recently for the new house, and being able to, the good news is, the merchant that we went with does have a loyalty experience. And so that helped certainly with subsequent purchases. Now, all of that was a digital experience, but if that were to move into an in-store experience, for example, like Lovesac, which is one of our point of sale customers, then you've got a really great opportunity to be able to increase the overall lifetime value of that customer by incentivizing them with loyalty points and also just like consistent discounts as a result of that loyalty. Now, does that look like a membership? Does it look like something else? I think, there's lots of opportunities to extend that, but I 100% agree. Like leaning more into mobile and leaning more into connecting that customer journey through mechanisms like loyalty points starts to make a lot more sense now. And even building mobile apps these days, like for some merchants, of course, the fidelity of them, you have to interrogate, but using vibe coding to even build these mobile experiences is significantly faster than what it was before. So like you've got a lot more opportunity.
True. Yeah. Before you'd have to it was a real project, an undertaking to build a mobile app. And that's why it was excuse me, excuse me. That's why it was such a big discussion, right? Because if you're investing all that time and resources into building something that much of an undertaking, it really has to pay off. I think Walmart is a great example of a mobile app that has the agent embedded in it that connects your digital footprint and then also your physical footprint. So, we have 2 super Walmarts in town, so we're there all the time. And when you go
Sounds
in
like
the
you guys are
store,
super.
we got a lot of people in our town. When you go into the store, it knows you're in the store. The mobile app knows you're in the store. So it pops up a totally different experience right in the app. And it helps you navigate the store that you're in. And it has store specific pricing, like for things that might be on clearance. And I use it to scan for pricing, like the most up to date pricing on my phone. And you can have so I'm going through the entire store with my phone scanning and asking the agent. And I just think it's such a really great example of a retailer that has managed to kind of bridge that gap. And then when I go into my account, I can see my online purchases. I can see my in-store purchases. And I think it's just it's just a great example.
No, I totally agree. And you nailed it on that. And how fulfilling is it, especially for like digital natives like ourselves, how fulfilling is it to be able to actually see all of your customer profile information, including order history, including preferences in one common place? I mean, like it's so annoying to me when those things just don't synthesize the way that we know that technology should enable that merchant to be able to do.
I know. Or I had an experience like this this week, where there was a sale online and I went into the store because I was like, I don't want to wait. I want this product now. I'm just going to go pick it up at the store. And I go to the store and they're like, oh no, we don't do whatever's happening online is separate from what's happening in the store. And I was just like, shocking experience in today's modern world where as a consumer, you expect that experience to be consistent no matter what property you are transacting in. So if there's a discount happening online, you expect to get that discount in store, and
100%.
Really terrible experience overall.
Well, especially from a brand, right? Like I get it from retailers, like you've got lots of brands that you're inventorying, and as a result, like you're going to have different promotions than what brands owned and operated experiences are. But for a brand that owns the web experience, that owns the retail experience, that theoretically has some version of data unification, where they are bringing all of that data together, you should be able to activate on that data. And I think also, quite frankly, that's where Data 360 from Salesforce is quite powerful in that regard, because it is sort of like your data clean room, if you will, for ingestion as well as activation.
Yeah.
So it also, that topic also came up in our CommerceNext dinner, which we had a ton of really good conversation, of really great retailers, both brand side as well as on the retailer side, attend the dinner. And a lot of the topic of discussion both was around the insights that you shared in your latest report. And in addition to that, also using agents and figuring out like how to take advantage of agents within my owned and operated experience. And I think, what was interesting in that, and I think pretty consistent as a takeaway, was the value that brands can receive by using, agents for these, surface areas that have a lot of attention, a lot of focus from the customers, such as product discovery, such as, looking into their account, such as help me find this, and doing so in a way that is natural language based and natural form of communication, which of course humans have been doing for a long time. So again, it makes a ton of sense. I actually spoke with a partner this week that that suggested that coding should actually be considered like a language, pretty similar to to all of our other romantic languages and so on and so forth. And I actually agree with him, because the way that you're interacting is pretty similar in that regard. I go down this rabbit trail to come back to say, for brands, I think there is an opportunity to figure out what their competitive advantage is in the market, and then how to activate that within their owned and operated experiences. To your point, data unification is going to be one of them, and then how you activate against that data is going to be incredibly important, agnostic of whatever like the interaction is, whether it's for merchandiser productivity or it is increasing your conversion rate by giving customers a more personalized experience through contextual relevance. There's a variety of sort of outputs of what that could be. But I think brands are thinking really, really hard about, okay, in this new agentic commerce era, what is my competitive advantage? And then how can I take advantage of it?
Yeah, absolutely. The challenge that brands are going to have is, how do they become that first stop in the journey? We know consumers are using third-party AI tools, but the challenge that brands will have or are having is that there's so much rich data in those interactions that they're losing out on today. And so the question they're going to have to answer, as you said, is, what makes my experience unique? And then how do I go out and prove that value? And so owning your data, unifying your data, of course. And I think it's funny because unifying your data, it sounds so easy and simple, but if you've been in the data space for any amount of time, you know how absolutely hard that is. It's not easy.
No.
And so that really is, the most important part. But then it has to provide something that as a third party or general purpose LLM can't. And so I think I love the Williams Sonoma example, because they are like Williams Sonoma, what they do, what they sell, it all caters to the table as the gathering place, and their agent helps you as the consumer not only choose the right product, but also helps you plan for those big moments. And so,
love that.
Thinking about, all of these amazing brands out there, they have such rich data on use cases and product data, and just think about what they can unlock for their customers. And Caleb, you and I have talked about this a lot, not necessarily going to the LLM, but thinking about how you build your own small language model, because you want to protect all of that. You don't want to open that up to become a training data set, right? You want to keep that in-house and keep that protected for your brand, for your customers. And so I'm curious what we talked a lot about this at dinner, but what your thoughts are on small language models and how they make sense or if they make sense for brands to consider.
I mean, in my view, it's one of the few things that is a must do for brands in this era. You have to be able to take greater control over your data sovereignty, and one of the ways that you can do that is building your own language model, and by comparison, a small language model. But I think then that also, using Williams Sonoma, great example. All of the different experiences that that consumers have with Williams Sonoma has access to a wealth of that data, but also there's a ton of sort of ripple effects, if you will, of the experiences that those consumers are then having when they are the party hosts, and when they are planning and making the dish and planning for the event, and building the table or setting the table, and everything that goes in basically like prepping for the experience and then executing on the experience. All of that context, they might have purchased maybe like 3 or 4 different things from Williams Sonoma. That's great, right? Then that's data that Williams Sonoma has. But then all of that context, whether shared through social media or shared through different interfaces that are consumable by large language models. All of that is really relevant data for how the consumer has interacted as a result of what they have purchased or how they've interacted with Williams Sonoma. And so, to that point, I think then that becomes an opportunity for brands like Williams Sonoma to say, okay, let me allow for the capability of ingesting all of that additional rich data that includes rich experiences from my customers that are now party hosts, that are now, chefs, that are now, barbecue pit masters, whatever the new term for them outside of consumer is, the mom, the dad, the parent that is creating the experience. Now that there's an opportunity to ingest all of that really great data and do so in a way that then they can start to better synthesize the data that they do have with that rich contextual data coming from large language models, but then make it their own, right? Align it to the shopper profiles that they have, align it to how they know that consumers are shopping. Well, how are they then experiencing what the products are that they've shopped, and not just in sort of user generated content that is then consumed in a traditional sense by brands like Williams Sonoma. So then I think that becomes an opportunity where you can build out an additional sort of wealth of knowledge within your own small language model by then consuming all of that data that large language models, quite frankly, have given us an opportunity to do so. So in that instance, I think Williams Sonoma is a great example of that. A lot of other really great examples that we can certainly share, but I think that is the one of the North Stars, if you will, for merchants in this agentic commerce era, that they need to get really, really good about understanding their customer, both in how they directly interact with them, but then how the consumer interacts with their products or services after the fact. And what does that ultimately look like? And how then does that shape the customer journey? How then does that shape how the brand interacts with the data now that they have maybe a richer, more comprehensive profile?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the question I have is, if brands go down this route, making their own small language models, does this make every company an AI company?
I think that's your hot take for today.
But that
Yeah,
is the theme. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think probably. I think the answer is yes, and I think also every consumer probably is their own AI company as well.
Yeah, right. Just all of the data that's out there and unifying all those data points. I mean, imagine once that is done, like on a very consistent basis, like just how incredible the shopping journey could be as a consumer as you navigate all those different touch points. And Caleb, at dinner, we talked a lot about, this idea that the consumer journey is just becoming a lot more fragmented, whether it's discovery happening at the very beginning of the journey. Even we're starting to see a lot of components of research and consideration happening off property. But then also there's signs that the transaction is starting to decouple from the traditional cart
Yep.
and brand owned experiences. And
Yep.
so, in that new world, the need for data and data unification so that the consumer does have a consistent experience. Just going back to the example of stepping into the store and the store having a different promotion than the online channel, how poor of an experience that was. Now imagine you have to manage social and the LLM, the third party LLM, and all these other different places that pop up. Where the consumer is discovering and interacting with your brand. I mean, the challenges are going to be immense.
100%. Well, I think in conclusion, because we can certainly postulate on this topic a lot, but I think there are really tangible ways that brands can activate an agentic commerce strategy. I
Yeah.
think the shopper agent is one, and that every brand should be testing a shopper agent regardless. And we asked that question at dinner too. And I would say the majority were either have implemented, or were in the process of evaluating deploying a shopper agent. Number two, I think is in agentic discovery, through traditional surface areas like, the search bar, but certainly others. I mean, we even talked about visual search. I mean, you gave great examples of that in your experience, but even in, in web experiences like, hey, my favorite athlete was wearing this out to dinner, and, I helped me find a way to mimic, what they were wearing, or my favorite celebrity or my favorite artist, what have you. So, those are very real ways that, that brands can actually take advantage of the technology that's available that can also impact KPIs that they already have. Now, certainly new KPIs will come as well, but things like Shopper Agent, things like product discovery, things like agentic merchandising are all, I think, things that merchants can go do now and will have, material impacts on what their traditional KPIs are. And quite frankly, they can do that, before holiday. And that's probably a good tee up for the next episode next week as we start thinking about holiday. I know that you've got some data that's coming out as well around holiday, so can't wait to dig into more of that as well.
Yeah, yeah. I want to pick your brain, Caleb, next week on the feed versus
Do it.
AEOG feed integration and what's going to be what brands should do in this. There's a lot of chatter, and I know I've been going back and forth with a few people on this, so I want to dive in.
You may not find much in there outside of caffeination and my own personal language model, which probably is not built on hundreds of billions of dollars of computing power, but you never know. All right. Thank you, Kayla. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you all soon.
See you next time.
Until next time.
Welcome to the table, steam on the glass. Market moves fast, but we talk it out. From carts to clicks, from mass to scale, every trend that breaks, we pull it apart. Morning in the feed, ideas in the cup. Old rules shaking, new ways showing up. Coffee and commerce, Caleb and Kayla, keep it moving. Coffee and commerce, from first sip to future, we're brewing. Emerging tech in the back room, signals on the rise, AI in the checkout, spark in your eyes. Agents making choices while the buyers sleep. Every twist in the market runs deep. Morning in the feed, ideas in the cup. Old rules shaking, new ways showing up. Coffee and commerce, Caleb and Kayla, keep it moving. Coffee and commerce, from first sip to future, we're brewing. What sells, what shifts, what stays, what lands, we trace the change with steady hands. One more pour, one more take, the future's here, wide awake. Coffee and commerce, Caleb and Kayla, keep it moving. Coffee